Before I get started, I'm going to make sure everything's working good here. Let's see. It's like YouTube's working. Twitch is working. A bit of delay today. It's kind of unfortunate. All right, last one to check is Twitter. I didn't know you could stream on Twitter, but I'm trying it. Oh, interesting. Okay, I guess it's on Twitter too. All right, I'm going to get started then. So this one's going to be sort of a pink and orange lake scene with reflections. I'm not a great watercolor painter, so we're going to find out if I'm actually capable of doing a good job on it. One thing that's kind of weird about this is I'm doing multiple streams, so I don't know that I can see all the different chats. I know I can see Twitch. I don't know about Twitter or YouTube. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to work wet into wet, but I also want to mix up a couple of colors because I want to work kind of fast. This paper dries pretty fast. This paper, by the way, is in, I guess, Eaton watercolor block. Just got it on Amazon. It's pretty much comparable to Arches, 160 pound, 100% cotton, cold pressed. Sort of like a medium to rough texture. That's a lot dirtier than I wanted it, but it's okay. All right, there's that. I kind of like to do a little bit of mixing first so that when it dries on the palette, I can kind of match it. That way I'm not like mixing on the fly because I want to be sort of fast working with watercolors. I wanted that to be more purple than it is. That's better. Okay, one last color. I kind of want like an orange yellow, I think. So I kind of like wet the pan a little bit so that it's a little bit easier to transfer the color. I find that helps a lot. I think that there's gonna work okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do this first wash. I think I'm going to try to keep it on the top here. So the way I'm going to do that is just wet the top of the paper. I'm going to do that with this flat brush here. So I'm done cleaning off this brush. Okay. Just going to take some clean water, cleanish water, I guess. And I'm going to wet, I guess, the top half of this. It's a watercolor block, by the way, which means that the sides of it are kind of glued together, which makes it a lot easier because the paper doesn't buckle so much. So I really like these watercolor blocks. It also helps that it's a small canvas. It's only like 5x7. So that helps a lot with the buckling too. Because I like to work really wet on my, like the very back layers of the painting. I like to be very sort of abstract and wet. Right now I'm just trying to get the paper thoroughly soaked because I really want this to bleed quite a lot. So I'm going to let that soak in here for just a second. All right, I'm going to just kind of brush some of the very top water off so it's not giving me weird puddles. Kind of want like a uniform sort of surface. We'll see if that actually happens or not. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some pink purple up at the top. It's not as pink as I was hoping it would be. That's a little better. Okay. So for this, I got to work kind of fast. Otherwise, it's going to dry on me and things aren't going to blend real well. So I'm going to get that bit in. I think I want some like a little bit of blue in there, mixing it in. And then I want that to kind of work its way over into the yellow territory over here. So this looks really vibrant right now, but that's really gonna lighten up because there's a lot of water in there. So right now it looks a little bit crazy, but it's okay. I think I'm gonna throw, like here there's gonna be some trees, and there's gonna be some trees over here too, so I might start throwing in just like the very back of those with like kind of a really watery mixture. So they sort of have a little bit of like kind of really distant looking things going on. You can see where there's a line where I wet the paper. The water tends to stick where the water is, so that can be kind of a helpful thing to do. I think I want that a little bit more purple, sort of brown. Well, actually, a little bit more blue, actually, since it's kind of back there. I probably shouldn't have used cerulean blue, but that's okay. Going back to the purple. I like the purple better. Yeah, let's get some of that over here too. I think there's going to be kind of like a distant thing over here with some trees too. Here is going to be sort of a lake, and then kind of over here, I'm going to put sort of like an island with some trees on it. I kind of want some more like purpley things going on up here, so I'm just going to go ahead and work like wet into wet and just mix the color on the canvas a little bit. This is a little bit redder than I wanted it, but I'm not terribly concerned about it. I think it'll look okay regardless. I really liking the way that is looking over there, but it's a little bit more vibrant than I wanted it to be. Thought with the amount of water I put in there, it would be a little bit subtler. So I think I'm going to try to add a little bit of water to that and pick some of that paint up. I'll add some kind of, well, I don't want to add too much texture since that's kind of in the background. Kind of using the brush, a dry brush, to sort of suck some of the color out of there. You can still do that while it's wet, otherwise you're into kind of scrubbing, which is not something I'm very good at or like to do. All right, so now I think I'm going to stop touching that for a minute and let it dry. Hopefully it won't be too long, so I'll just be sitting here twiddling my thumbs and you'll all be bored. So really with this one, I kind of want to experiment with some wet and wet reflections. I want some like really sort of colorful reflections in the water. So that's why I'm trying to do sort of dull colors in the sky. Then I'm going to have some sort of trees over here that are going to be very defined. Then some sort of distant stuff over here. And then I want to sort of create some really striking shadows and reflections in the water. I think my next step is going to be adding like these, well, it might be adding the foliage on the trees, actually, because those are a little bit lighter. Because I'm going to have some like kind of yellow trees over here. That's where the yellow is sort of coming in. That'll act as the backdrop for the trees. You know what I should have done is worked on two paintings at the same time, because one of my favorite things about working with watercolor is that I'm really bad at it, and the more that you touch it, the more it just completely ruins the freshness of the painting. So I tend to do watercolor paintings a lot faster than oil paintings or acrylic, especially acrylic paintings. My acrylic paintings, I get really into like overworked territory really fast, because you know you can just paint over stuff. If you don't like something, you can just wait for it to dry, paint over it, no problem. With watercolor, if you try to paint over it, it just makes hard edges all over it and starts to look kind of gross. So I like that you are sort of forced to kind of get it right the first time a little bit, which is a little bit nerve-wracking, but is also just easier in my opinion, because if I make a painting I don't like, you know, it only took me 3 hours instead of 24 hours or whatever it takes a longer painting to do, if it's a big watercolor painting. These little ones, I mean, you can do in almost no time at all, but the biggest hurdle is what we're doing right now, which is just waiting for this backdrop to dry so that when I try to work wet and wet again on the mid and bottom, I'm not going to be, this is going to be kind of set in a little bit. You can still sort of muddle with it a bit, but once it's kind of dried, it'll more kind of stain the paper a little bit, I think. I don't really like this ridge that's happening at the top there, so I'm going to try and suck that out with a dry brush here. Hopefully I don't ruin anything. It's usually a good idea to not just, get up and walk away from your watercolor paintings when a layer is drying, because they'll tend to do things you don't want, and then you'll come back and it won't look quite the same as it did when you left it. Because as it's drying, it's doing all kinds of interesting things. I'm already pretty happy with like the texture that's going on here. Up here, it sort of almost looks like clouds a little bit, which wasn't really intentional, but that's just watercolor doing the things that it does. I'm thinking now that this is a little bit drier, I might try and add another background layer while it's still a little bit wet, but not like crazy wet. I'm gonna have a smaller brush so that it's not quite so much paint is going to get added. So this is kind of this color here. There's sort of going to be a line back here. It's sort of like a distant tree line. Trying to get kind of a darker line right here. That's okay. Well, maybe we'll add just like a tiny bit of purple in there. Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. Taking a little bit of a risk with these watercolor streams because I'm not real confident in watercolor. I've only done maybe 15 or 20 watercolor paintings that would consider decent. So, I don't know how this is going to turn out. This might be the worst painting ever recorded. Or I could knock it out of the park and this could be the best watercolor painting ever recorded. Though I don't think that's likely. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. Now, I think I'm going to work on the island here. Yeah, I'm going to work on the island here because I can do the trees a little bit after that. And this area is dry. So I don't want that area dry, number one. So the first thing I'm going to do is just wet, like right here. I'm just going to like wet a little section for my island. And that's probably going to blend it, and that's going to create sort of an edge up here. But that's okay, I think, because there's going to be a lot of trees and stuff in front of that. So I'm just going to wet this out to here. I'm thinking go all the way to maybe the middle. Wet that a little more. I don't want this one too wet because I don't want to spend this entire stream waiting on stuff to dry. Okay. Now I need to add sort of some dull pink in there. So I'm going to take this pink, come over here, water it down quite a lot. And I'm going to just throw that in there. Just sort of a subtle kind of color, because I want to keep it sort of light so that the trees really interact with it. And some of that granulation is going to help create a nice, like, sort of ground texture, I think. Then I'm going to give it a little bit more color up front. So something like a sort of a little bit of a brown, yellow brown. I want to gray it a little bit. There's some white in there to make it a little bit kind of milky. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Kind of going for subtle here because I really want to draw the eyes to the reflections. That's hopefully when this painting will start to look more interesting. That's when I've got some of those reflections in it. And I'm kind of debating between sort of like two methods of which one I want to try. Part of me wants to just have like really, really wet, like let the whole thing dry, then add the trees in really wet, and then just tilt the painting up and let the trees drip down, and that'll create reflections, which would be, that's a very highly kind of stylized choice, whereas otherwise I could just add a really wet wash, and basically just do the same thing I did up here, down here, but with kind of more vivid, watery, cooler colors, and then kind of line in the trees with more layers, which is maybe what I'll do, so that way I don't have to wait for the whole painting to dry before I can work on it. So I'm just kind of waiting for this to dry a little bit and this to dry a little bit. I'm just going to touch it, see how dry it is. This is almost dry. I'm almost ready to start working back up there. I'm okay if it's a little bit damp because I kind of want a little bit of bleeding to happen with the trees up there too. So I'm okay with a little bit of wetness still being there. I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing the colors up that I want for that. I think I can use this yellow, but I want to like make it, that's probably too much. I want it to be sort of like a warm yellow. That's a little bit too warm and a little bit too dark. This is where I wish I was a better watercolor painter, because I want this to go cooler and lighter. So if I go cooler, that means I'm adding, blue to it. or this yellow, but that's gonna like amp up the yellow, and I want it to stay kind of, I don't know. Basically, my instinct is to add white to it, but if you add white to it, it's gonna get milky. Like here, I'll show. You add milk, it starts to get sort of, I don't know, chalky, and I don't. Chalky is not really what I want. I want it to be cooler, not chalkier. So this, usually with like oil paints or acrylic paints, if you add white to it, it's going to cool it down and lighten it. But with watercolor, it definitely lightens it, but it just sort of chalks it up, which is sort of, I don't know, not really desirable most of the time. Actually, add some of that in there. Well, that's a lot more paint than I thought it was. All right, so now I'm gonna add the trees in, I guess. I'm just trying to get some really loose, broken kind of brush strokes in here so that it's not too distracting, but also visually interesting. Okay, calling that tree good. Now, this guy over here, it's a little bit shorter. Throw some of that in there. Add some sort of darker bits in there too to give it a little bit more texture. Do the same thing on this other tree here. Throw some of that kind of redder mix down in there too. I'm going to kind of blend into them, like the bottom of the tree is going to be a little bit purple. Actually, a lot purple, probably. So the red will be a nice transition, I think. Not really thrilled with that. It's okay. Okay, this, I wish I hadn't done that. That's kind of ugly, but it's going to have to be worked in somehow. Add a little bit more brown into this guy. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna add some purple in there now. I think I'm gonna keep the bigger brush. I was gonna go down a size, but I actually think that bigger brush is going to make this more abstract, which will help me because I'm not real great at painting detail. Keep things abstract is much easier to do. Okay. Go ahead and add tree looking stuff back in there. Okay. Now, go ahead and add some of that back here. These actually, I'm going to try and water these down a lot. So I don't want those to be too bright. I think I'm gonna suck some of that water out of there. I'm gonna pull some of that out. So those really are distant. It's a little bit too much, so I'm gonna add some of that back. Kind of want these to be like sort of line shaped. Maybe I'll use a liner brush then. I can always darken this up later if I don't think it's pronounced enough. Tell you what I definitely don't like is this line there, so I'm gonna expand that out more. Want that to kind of fade into nothing. I'm happier with that. I think I'm gonna add a second line down there too. Can indicate that those are separate. I'll wet my paints again. Okay. Another line down in here. All right, we'll see how I feel about that. I think I'm gonna add some more like maroon, kind of pinky red things in here. Kind of this color. I don't know what you call that, magenta. Kind of want a little bit of that in there. Okay, I like that better. I want some kind of dark bits in there too, so I'm going to use some Payne's Gray. And more magenta. Well, actually, that's good there. Yeah, that's good. I want some kind of, I don't know what that would be, rocks or something, but add a little bit of extra synth in there. Okay. I'm going to work more on this tree. Well, actually, yeah, I want a tree right here too. It's a little bit less, well, maybe I'll make that into it. I guess that's what I'm going to do. Just kind of trying to fix that mistake there. I'm going to grab a paper towel instead of my big towel so I can be a little more precise. So I just want to pull some of that out. Really easy to do that on higher quality paper. Not easy to do that on lower quality paper. Just doesn't work. I don't know why. Pull that out again. Trying to get rid of that. It's okay that I'm creating some kind of ugly edges there, because I'm going to put a tree on top of it and you won't see it. Okay. That tree I want to be kind of pink, I think. So I keep saying pink, I think I said that yesterday too. Don't mean to rhyme like that. It just happens. Alright, so this tree I want to be already bungled it. It's too much paint. Pick that up, start again. This one I want to be sort of spotty. It's too wet. I'm gonna wait on that one actually. I've made that part too wet. Wait till it's dry. Okay. I'm gonna add some of that purple back here. Okay, I think I'm ready to start playing in here now. Well, this needs to be like totally dry before I add the tree trunks, because those I'm gonna almost dry brush in. Because I want those I'm just gonna be straight black, maybe a little bit of like brown, and maybe a little bit of yellow. But they're gonna be mostly black. But I want those lines to be really crisp, and I don't want any bleeding out of them. So that means that I gotta wait for that to be totally dry. Maybe while I wait, I can crisp that edge up a little bit, because I want this to really look like a shoreline. So I think I can do that with this color that I grayed down. Some Payne's gray. Maybe a little bit more. Oh, okay, that was way too much. How about there? Okay. Okay. All right with this. Maybe I should use a liner for this actually, so it's less paint. I like that idea. All right. Here I'm just going to be kind of enhancing this edge a little bit. I like keeping the nice edges that watercolor gives you. Keeping those like natural watermarks in there is kind of ideal. Tracing around the bits that don't really have good defined edges can look pretty good too. Just going to dry brush something over there to sort of mix those in. Okay. I think it's about time I stopped working on that bit. I come back in here and add some details, distant details. Make sure they're keeps that distant looking feel, because I like that. pull some of that out because I don't want it to get too dark. Just want to kind of like add some lines in there to suggest trees. There, I think that's a little bit more. Looks less like a blob, more like a tree. Group of trees. And add a little bit more natural looking foliage over there. Gonna add some of that in here too. So it doesn't look quite so barren. Okay, I'm not unhappy with that. I actually kind of think this looks like a building more than it looks like a tree. So I might go with that. I like the way that happened. It's got this thing here though. I wish I had seen that before well, maybe I guess I added this first. I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe at the end of the painting I'll try and add maybe some white or orange lights. Maybe with some acrylic paint or something to make those look like houses, I'm not sure. This painting is definitely going to make a lot more sense once I get those tree branches in. I think this bit is dry enough that I can go ahead and do the reflections. Oh, maybe I'll wait. No, I can do that after. I was going to say maybe if I go with like that building thing here and I reflect it down, I can put those reflections in, but I can just add some like really dark looking reflections for that. Might give it sort of a surreal look, but I think that might be interesting. I can do that crazy wavy line look with the lights and if I put a light up in there or something. All right, so now what I'm going to do is wet all of this. I'm going to try to keep that separation here, but it's okay if it bleeds over a little bit because those will just become like the shadows of the trees. But before I do that, I'm going to mix up some of those colors. Let me put this brush over there because I'm going to need it. And I have this guy here. Make sure he's good and clean. Okay, so I kind of want some like blue-green sort of surreal looking shadows. So I'm going to add a little bit of like stock green. This is phthalo and sap, but phthalo and sap green are not very natural looking greens. But in a really wet wash with some blue added to them, they kind of look, I don't know, ethereal maybe is the word. I sort of like that look. So I kind of tend to put them next to like cerulean blue and kind of like purpley colors, or this color over here. I've done that in a couple of paintings and it's come out really nicely. Okay, I'm going to clean out this brown over here that I made too, just by adding some water in there. And then I can just suck the water out of there with the dry brush. Got a nice clean slot there now. And I'm going to put some kind of reddish pink in there. It's actually, I might just leave it like straight alizarin crimson. Well, I want to add at least a little pink in there. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty intense color, but I think it'll look good. And I might throw some kind of warmer red in there too. Okay, so for this one, I don't want the wash to be too wet because I don't want all of my reflections to bleed into each other. That would be not desirable. I want to have a little bit more control, so I'm just going to make it damp. That's my goal. So, not too wet, but wet enough that it's going to flow a little bit. Maybe what I'll do is like suck some of the water out with a paper towel. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. We're going to try it first. I'm just going to wet it just with this one coat, get all of the moisture off of the top, let it just soak the paper a tiny bit. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with a big brush, lots of color, and boldly add some reflections. All right, that's one. All right, now we're going in with this guy here. And maybe what I'll do is I'll come in with a more intense color and dry brush some of that in. I want that to sort of fade out there. Okay. I'm going to throw some more of that kind of red pink in there. It's a little bit too dry, I think. Kind of ham-fisting some of this because I want there to be some harmony here, so I'm trying to work fast. Okay, I'm just going to add some water here because I want this to be, that was too much water. I just want it to be sort of off-white in some of these portions here. Okay, now here, I think I'm going to add some pinky shadows, but a little bit purple. Okay. Now I'm going to get into some of that blue. I want it to be a little bit cooler. Yeah, that'll do it. I want to wet this a little more. Seems like it's pretty much dried up at this point, which is okay. Okay. It was way darker than I wanted it to be. It's okay. I'm going to pull some of that out. All right, let's get some shadow right here. Cool it down as it comes out. Oh, that's too much. Still way too much. I'm going to pull some of that out. I want to killed all my purple in there. I'm going to put a little bit of that back. So I wanted it to kind of granulate a bit. I'm going to pull some of this out here. Okay. I'm going to get that kind of an off-white. All right. So I'm going to add some kind of green in here. See how green it... Oh, I don't... That's ugly. I messed up my green with some purple. Yeah. I don't want to overdo it with the green. Just want a little bit in there. I'm going to pull a lot of that out. Okay. All right. I'm not unhappy with that. I think I'm going to end up darkening some of these. And I got hairs in my painting from my brush. Guess those live there now. Okay, there he goes. All right, I'm probably going to darken some of that up. And, well, actually, before I do anything else, I'm going to add some more blue in here. I can't be working over there, it's too dry. Okay, I think I'm going to come in and re-wet that and make it more intense after I work a little more up here. This is pretty dry now. So I'm going to add some of the trees up there. Some of the foreground looking trees. And then we're going to reassess things a bit. I mean, for this, I'm basically just going to straight black for the tree trunks, and then like maybe a little brown in there. So this one's going to sit kind of right here. Want more flow in there. Hopefully this is when this painting will start to look like a painting and not like some colors I threw on a piece of paper. I think I'm going to actually fade that out as it goes up. So like tiny bit of white and brown. Yeah, I think white was a mistake, but we're going to go with it. I don't want it to be like, too much contrast up there. back into my darker black. I'm definitely keeping that. I like that piece in there. That was just sort of a random thing that happened. I'm gonna try and work that in, because it's definitely the kind of thing I like to see. It's gonna be a building. I decree it. Okay, so now I want to add some distant. I should have done these first, but I didn't because I get excited. I want to add some like kind of distant looking tree branches to this tree, so it doesn't look like branches and then trunk. And I'm just going to use a light kind of, or a dark, sorry, kind of orange color to do that. That is, oh, so much yellow. That's just mud. I think I've got a lot of white in there. That's probably why that happened. Don't like that at all. I want to try that again. I want kind of an orange color, so just start from up here. But, man, I'm picking up so much yellow with this brush. Wasting a lot of paint there. Okay. I want these to be a little bit brown. Yeah, that's more what I was looking for. And I want these to be a little bit watered down, but not so watery that it causes me problems. Add some of these now. I'm gonna just try the color real quick to make sure it's what I wanted. Yeah, that's what I wanted. I kind of add some that aren't like connected to anything, so it looks like, yeah, they're poking in and out of the tree. Okay. I think a little bit more up in the top would benefit. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing, but with some purple down in there, so that those read like branches instead of something behind the tree. I could probably just use this up here. This one, I think I can just get away with like, I want it to be a little bit lighter, because I want it to stand out against that purple. I'm going to throw some of that in there. See if it shows up or not. Not at all. Okay. Payne's gray it is. This one's going to have to be, that's way too much black. Let's It's too dark for my liking. Adding some red in there should lighten it up. Okay, that's kind of a really dark purple. We'll see if that's... Yeah, it's probably not even going to look any different. I've sort of bungled that tree branch. It's okay. All right, that's a tree. It's a tree. Now, shadow. Just dry brush the shadow in there. So he's not just sticking out of the landscape. All right, one tree down. I wish this wasn't there, because I would just like add some foreground stuff here and then just let that be like some kind of town or something in the background. But that tree is there and it's going to fight me. So I guess it wins. It's going to be a tree too. I'm going to just add this branch. I think is just going to be kind of a, it's going to have to be pretty dark because I got to get over this value. It's gonna, well, maybe I'll just go with this. I just want to lighten this up just a little bit. Okay, we're gonna go with this. This is a really heavy, high paint concentration here. Okay, we're gonna add tree. That's where he lives. Okay, I really gotta be careful adding those crazy contrast branches up there. And I think he's gonna have another tree down here. That one's got some crazy curvy bits to it. And then maybe one more over here. This guy, I'm gonna keep this guy pretty light colored. I want this guy to be kind of, ooh, he's not dark enough. Fine. Go more black. I'm gonna have to do something to add some contrast there. Not right now. Okay, that's a tree. Now, something's going right there. Okay, we're throwing one in there. Guy's gonna live right here. So he kind of sets that. I want this to be the focal point. So maybe what I'm gonna do is like really, but I like the way it's, I don't know, we're gonna, yeah, once I add the light, I think that'll make more sense. But I'm gonna try to bring the viewer here. So the trees are kind of gonna point that way. And I'm gonna box them in with a tree here so it puts you right in there. That's what we're going to try to do anyway. It's going to have to be really dark. Oh, I don't like that branch. I think that tree... he's getting some pink leaf things going on, I think. That's what he's going to get. I'm going to try to like dry brush these on. And we'll see how badly that goes. Try to stipple some of that in there. So it reads a little bit like a tree. But I really don't want to take... I want this one to be kind of subtle. Because I want your eyes to go there. Okay. I'm not thrilled with that tree, but it's better than nothing. So now these trees kind of have a problem where I didn't add enough broken lines, so it looks like I stuck these tree limbs on top, so I'm going to add a little bit more depth in there. I think I'm going to do that with some kind of dry brushed leafy things. I don't know if that's working out or not. I guess time will tell. Depends how they dry. If those dry like really dark, then I should be okay. Now this is feeling a little bit empty to me in here. Let me think compositionally what would be good in there. This, I don't want too much over here. You know, maybe what I can do is make this shadow. So I cut in up in here and I make, yeah, I'll cut some of this off. So maybe I'll do something like cut some of that out. But this bit back here, I need to add something there. But first, let's do this bit. Let's do that bit. Now I'm just gonna like darken these shadows that I made earlier. And so I'm gonna wet the paper again. Just all this, I'm gonna wet all this again. So that way I get kind of a nice even blend. I'm definitely gonna give this one a second to soak in. Okay. So I'm gonna add a lot darker shadows at the top and just kind of let that bleed downward. Hold on, I'm gonna missed my paints a bit. All right, so just gonna touch some of that in there. Give it a really dark looking shadow. And I'm gonna add a line where that tree trunk is. I'm gonna let it do all kinds of crazy watercolor things because that's what it do. I'm gonna just add some touches of that around too. Okay, I'm gonna do the same kind of thing over here. Except I'm gonna go in with some of this purple. Add that shadow line. That was, I don't know, that shadow line comes down too far, so I'm gonna blend that a little bit. Okay, it's not a bad reflection there. So then I need to do these two trees. Well, I'm setting all of this in. So, and I want to add kind of a light area here. Let me see if I can pick some of that paint out. I might be able to. Nope, not at all. It's already stained in there. Okay. That's all right. Just means that the highlight on that is, or the reflection on that is going to be very dark. I try to get rid of this line. Might work, might not. Just going to do that by kind of scrubbing it. Okay, that's more along the lines of what I wanted. So now while it's still wet, I need to add some purple in there. I want it to be kind of a bluer purple. It's too blue. That's okay. I don't know how I feel about all that. Okay, let me pull some of this out. I added a lot of paint there because I wanted to make sure it blended in with this pink over there. And I'm going to add a line. That guy. Ugh. Needs more. I have to really make sure. Well, I curved it because of my shaky hands. That's going to read like a line. I do want to pick some of that up though. Okay. Better with that. So now I think I want to suck some of these out here to give these two trees a nice striking contrast. Okay. So let's go ahead and add their shadow. Thinking same purple will do. Maybe a little bit bluer. Okay, these guys I'm just gonna add the line. Wow. I'm gonna wet this a little bit. Make sure everything's still nice and wet. I'm going to give that just a moment to dry for just a little bit, not too much. Okay. That's really wet, so if I add a line there, it's going to like poof out. So I want to avoid that. It's like I got two people across. I don't know if that's just on Twitch or if that's on YouTube or whatever. There's two of you in there. What do you think? If you're not asleep. I reckon them's asleep. Okay, there's that line. And there's that one. I like that one ought to be taller. Okay. Now, I'm going to tackle this guy. Definitely going to have to add some like bushes and stuff back here. It looks like we got a painting down here and painting up there. Need to be one. Thinking. Think. I think we're gonna go subtle. Okay. We've gone subtle. Okay. Now I really gotta do something about here. Maybe something has got to happen. Something. I think maybe a path back there, maybe? A path. Okay. Alright, let's do that. Let's add in a little path. It's gonna kind of disappear back in there. There's gonna be some trees and stuff back there. Okay. So this is gonna be that path, And I think I don't know, maybe like I think they're called cedar trees, but there's like kind of oval shaped trees. Maybe that would be sort of interesting to put there. I'm thinking like purple ones, kind of the same color as that, whatever that thing is there. This blue looking, purpley blue looking guy. I want it to be a lot cooler. These ones, I think, part of me wants to just like touch it with the brush and see what that does. And that part of me wins. Aha! I like that. I think that looks okay. Add another one. It's too much color in there though. I'm gonna have to take some of that out. Let's get this brush dry and just want to touch them. I don't want to ruin that shape though. I like that shape. Now let's go ahead and add those shadows in. Since we're here. Need a little bit more paint in there to make him have a nice shadow. He ain't quite straight. That tree's a little crooked, or bush or whatever it is. Maybe I'll give him a friend. In there. Getting too much paint. Alright, now my mind is saying put like a bench or something right here. But I really am bad at painting benches. So, abstract thing. So wet it good. Is that a park bench? Maybe. Make it kind of flat, square looking. I don't know, is it a park bench? Who knows? I could read like a park bench if you stretch your imagination. Alright, and now I think I'm just gonna add some like grass sort of texture there. The question is, what color to make it? My mind says purple, but my heart says green. So maybe we get like a dull blue-green. I don't know. I don't want to mess that harmony up there. You know, maybe we'll go like about more of this. Yeah, more of that brown, I think, actually. I'm gonna go like we're gonna mix in space here. That was like a milky brown, if I remember. I'll add a little bit of yellow in there. A little warm yellow. Warm. A little bit warmer. Alright, we're gonna see how that reads. I'm just gonna dry brush it. I don't know. Not sure how I feel about all that. Okay. Now I'm at the point where I don't hate it. So I'm gonna go one final wash to iron out. Well, let me think. Hmm. Gotta be careful with these watercolor paintings, I'm telling you. You get into overwork territory really fast. Okay, so now I'm gonna try and add the light, and then I might, depending on how that goes, that might be the end of it. That might be all she wrote for this guy. Good or bad, I think anything more I do to it is going to be in the territory of damage. Because I'm kind of out of ideas with him. You don't want to be in that position where you're just touching stuff randomly. Just trying things. Okay. So to add that light, I think what I need to do is like go into some straight orange and get like literally just straight paint. And I'm just gonna touch him. It's not quite orange enough. That stinks. That's about all I can do. And add one there. There maybe. Now, I get into some really tricky business. I'm going to try to add that into the reflection. Not as striking as I hoped it would be, but I like it. I'm not opposed to that. Okay, I think we're gonna call it on that one. More, it's not better for that. I think this is a less is more kind of thing. All right. I think, let's see, I've been going for an hour 30. I think we're going to call it there for today. I was thinking about doing another painting, but hour and 30 minutes on this one. I think I've gotten my painting in for today. So I'm going to try and put this up on Twitch as a VOD, and I don't know if that'll work for YouTube and Twitter, but I'll definitely be trying to get some of these up so I can watch them back and see what to improve on. Aside from that, the 2 people that watched, if you're not asleep, thank you. If you are asleep still, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close it there. Thanks, guys.